December 24th, 1944. La Gliese, Belgium. Look at this photograph. Study every detail because what you're seeing should be impossible. Those are King Tiger tanks, 70-ton monsters, the most feared weapons on planet Earth, sitting there in perfect condition with their hatches cracked open like someone just stepped out for a smoke break. Except their crews are gone. Vanished into the frozen forests. On Christmas Eve 1944, the 1st SS Panzer Division, Adolf Hitler's personal bodyguard unit, did something unthinkable. They abandoned 135 armored vehicles worth hundreds of millions in today's currency. 5,000 of Germany's elite Waffen-SS soldiers walked away from the pride of the Third Reich and fled on foot through the snow, leaving their wounded comrades behind to freeze. This wasn't surrender. This was panic. What stopped Joachim Paper's Kampfgruppe, the spearhead of Germany's last desperate gamble to win World War II? It wasn't carpet bombing. It wasn't a secret American superweapon. The entire collapse began with a 50-cent piece of hemp rope and a trick so simple, so insane, it was never in any official field manual. This is the story of the daisy chain, one of the most brilliant examples of improvised warfare tactics ever used in combat, and how American combat engineers turned the Battle of the Bulge into a traffic jam from hell. December 16, 1944. The Ardennes Forest. The temperature is 18 degrees Fahrenheit and dropping. The smell hits you first, wet wool uniforms, diesel fumes, and that metallic tang of snow mixed with fear. The men of the 291st Engineer Combat Battalion are trying to dig, and they're failing. These aren't frontline killers. They're construction workers in uniform. Bridge builders. Road fixers. The guys who usually operate bulldozers while the infantry does the fighting. But today, they're trying to save their lives, and nature is their enemy. Colonel David E. Pergrin, 27 years old, Penn State civil engineering graduate, a guy who 6 months ago was building Bailey bridges in Normandy, is staring at an intelligence report that makes his blood run cold. Kampfgruppe Paper is coming. The name alone sounds like a knife scraping metal. Joachim Paper. 29-year-old SS Obersturmbannführer. Leading over 5,000 men and 600 vehicles stretched across 25 kilometers of Belgian back roads. His mission is brutally simple: punch through American lines, cross the Meuse River in 24 hours, split the Allied armies in half. Speed is everything. Fuel is his blood. Momentum is his oxygen. If he stops, Germany loses the war. Pergrin knows the textbook solution for stopping tank columns. You lay a minefield. Take your M101 anti-tank mines, 17-pound steel discs packed with 6 pounds of composition B explosive, bury them in a checkerboard pattern across the road, cover them with dirt, and wait. When a 45-ton Panther tank rolls over one, the pressure plate triggers 2,750 joules of explosive force that shreds the track assembly like tissue paper. Simple. Effective. Proven. Except for one catastrophic problem. Sergeant Bill McKenzie drives his GI issue entrenching tool into the frozen roadbed near Malmedy. The impact sends shockwaves up his arms that rattle his teeth. The shovel blade rebounds off the earth with a metallic clang that echoes across the forest. Sparks fly from the ground. Actual sparks, like striking flint against steel. The ground isn't soil anymore. 8 weeks of sub-freezing temperatures have transformed Belgian dirt into something resembling concrete mixed with granite. The frost line has penetrated over 3 feet deep. Mackenzie tries again with a pickaxe. The steel point chips the frozen dirt, producing a pathetic divot maybe half an inch deep. His shoulders scream from the impact. His hands go numb despite thick wool gloves. All around him, other engineers are having the same nightmare experience. Clang. 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 Each strike producing nothing but pain and desperation. Someone tries a pneumatic jackhammer. After 5 minutes of bone-rattling effort, they've chipped away perhaps 2 inches. And in the distance, maybe 5 miles, maybe 10, you can hear them. That distinctive high-pitched whine of German Maybach engines. The rumble of steel tracks on frozen asphalt carries for miles in cold air. Every man in the 291st knows what that sound means. Paper is coming. And they cannot bury the mines. Think about this moment. You're 22 years old. Freezing. Exhausted. You have crates full of proven anti-tank weapons that can stop any tank ever built. But nature has locked the door. The earth has betrayed you. If you leave the mines sitting on the road surface, German tank commanders will steer around them. Their infantry will kick them into ditches like footballs. The mines are useless. You can hear death approaching at 30 miles per hour, and you have no defense. Lieutenant Alvin Edelstein slams his fist on a wooden crate in the command tent, really just canvas stretched between trees. We can't dig. We can't bury. So what the hell are we supposed to do? Throw the damn things at the tanks? The moment he says it, the tent goes quiet. It's a joke. Gallows humor. Except, what if you could throw them? Not literally. But what if the mine could move? The idea is so stupid, so wildly improvised, nobody even acknowledges it at first. But desperation breeds innovation. Someone starts pulling equipment from supply trucks. Hemp rope. Blackfield telephone wire. Parachute cord. Anything with tensile strength. They grab an M101 mine and examine the carrying handle, a metal loop welded to the top designed for soldiers to transport the 17-pound mine without triggering the pressure fuse. What if we tie them together? Private First Class Bernard Koenig suggests, breath steaming. String them like firecrackers? Lieutenant Warren Rombaugh picks up the idea. 4 or 5 mines. Tie them in a line. Hide them in the ditch. When the tank comes past, drag them onto the road. That's suicide, someone mutters. Yeah, Rombaugh replies. But so is sitting here doing nothing. They start experimenting. For M101 mines lined up on frozen ground, spaced about 5 feet apart. They use hemp rope, the same stuff for towing vehicles, to lash them together through the carrying handles. The knots need to be secure but allow play in the line. Too tight and the mines won't spread properly. Too loose and they'll tangle. When they drag the assembly across snow, the mines slide in a sinuous line that reminds someone of a flower chain children make in summer. Somebody laughs nervously and says it looks like a daisy chain. The name sticks. But as engineers practice the motion, hiding in foxholes, pulling rope to slide mines across ice-slicked roads, the true horror of what they're proposing becomes clear. This isn't a trap you plant and walk away from. This is a duel. To make this work, an American soldier will need to let a 45-ton Panther tank drive within spitting distance of his position. He'll need to remain perfectly still while 700 horsepower of German engineering roars past close enough to feel exhaust heat. He'll need to time the pull perfectly. Too early, the tank stops and backs up. Too late, he misses the kill zone. And there's the small matter of what happens after you pull the rope. When that mine detonates under 45 tons of moving steel less than 20 yards away, the overpressure wave alone could rupture your lungs. The shrapnel will turn trees into splinters. Nobody wants to talk about what happens if you're unlucky. Joachim Paper isn't worried about American engineers. The SS Obersturmbannführer has spent 3 years on the Eastern Front turning Soviet armor into scrap metal. He commanded tanks at Kursk. He broke through at Kharkov. Hitler himself selected Kampfgruppe Paper to lead the Ardennes offensive because the Führer wanted someone who wouldn't hesitate, wouldn't slow down, would drive a steel fist through soft American lines and not stop until reaching Antwerp. Paper's column is terrifying to behold. The vanguard consists of over 30 Panther Os. G tanks, 45-ton Predators with sloped frontal armor and 75mm guns that can penetrate American Sherman armor at 2,000 meters. Behind them lumber King Tigers, absolute monsters weighing 70 metric tons with armor so thick American tank shells literally bounce off at any range. Their 88mm guns can destroy anything the Allies have from distances so far the target can't even see where the shot came from. Following the armor, half-tracks packed with grenadiers, self-propelled guns, supply trucks, fuel tankers, mobile workshops. The entire column stretched out would run for 25 kilometers. It's an army on wheels. A steel tsunami. And it's starving for gasoline. This is the secret weakness paper keeps thinking about as his column grinds westward through Belgian night. The king tigers, those magnificent beasts, consume fuel at catastrophic rates. On paved roads, they burn through 505 liters per 100 kilometers. Off-road, that figure skyrockets to 650 to 800 liters. Each King Tiger's fuel tank holds 860 liters, giving maximum range of about 170 kilometers on roads, but only 110 to 120 kilometers cross-country. Do the math. Paper needs to cover over 150 kilometers to reach objectives. He's already off his planned route because bridges were demolished behind him. Every detour, every delay, every minute spent idling burns precious fuel he doesn't have. The German High Command promised resupply. They promised captured American fuel depots. They promised many things. But right now, at 0400 hours on December 18th as paper's lead elements approach Stavelot, his fuel gauges are already showing yellow. He cannot stop. Stopping means death. The fog on December 18th morning is thick enough to cut with a knife. Visibility down to maybe 50 meters. Temperature 18 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything is gray, sky, snow, bare trees, even road surface. Like driving through wet wool. Inside the lead Panther, Oberscharfer Werner Sternbeck peers through his vision port and sees nothing. Just swirling gray. He can hear the Maybach HL230 engine behind him, all 700 horsepower, idling at 60 to 80 liters per hour even while stationary. Every minute sitting here is another liter of irreplaceable fuel turning into exhaust fumes. Pioneer truck forwards, the radio crackles. Pioneer squad forward. German combat engineers, Panzer Pioneers, dismount from their half-track and move ahead of tanks. They carry mine detectors, portable devices about the size of small televisions with detection coils at the end of wooden poles. The operators sweep devices back and forth across road surface like metal detectorists hunting for coins on a beach. They're looking for magnetic signatures of buried steel. M101 anti-tank mines. Standard American defensive doctrine. Germans have encountered these mines from Normandy to the West Wall. Their procedures are refined, professional, thorough. Sweep left. Sweep right. Watch the needle. The detector needles stay flat. No magnetic return. No buried metal. Strasse free, road clear. The Pioneer squad leader waves tanks forward. Behind him, 45 tons of Panther lurches into motion with transmission whine and distinctive squeal of cold steel tracks on frozen asphalt. What Germans don't know, what they cannot know, is that less than 15 meters to their right, hidden in a snow-filled drainage ditch behind a collapsed stone wall, Private First Class Vincent Consiglio is gripping a piece of frozen hemp rope so hard his knuckles have gone white. Consiglio is 23. From Newark, New Jersey. Before the war, he installed telephone lines for Bell Atlantic. Now he's hiding in a hole in Belgium, and he can feel the earth shaking. The Panther is 30 meters away. Then 20. The engine noise is overwhelming, a high-pitched mechanical scream mixed with deep bass rumble of mass in motion. The smell of diesel exhaust cuts through frozen air. Consiglio's heart hammers so hard he's sure Germans can hear it. Beside him in the foxhole, squad leader Sergeant Harold Hinkle whispers, "Wait, wait." 15 meters. Consiglio can see the tank now through fog. Dark gray shape resolving like a shark emerging from murky water. Enormous. Unstoppable. 10 meters. The tank's bow machine gun swivels, scanning. If the gunner looks right, if he notices the stone wall, if he sees movement. 5 meters. Now. Consiglio yanks the rope with every ounce of strength. In the ditch beside him, for M101 anti-tank mines, each weighing 17 pounds, connected by 5-foot segments of hemp rope, suddenly slide out onto icy road surface in a dark, sinuous line. It happens so fast the German driver doesn't even react. The Panther's right track rolls directly onto the second mine in the chain. The pressure plate, designed to trigger at 350 to 500 pounds, barely registers the first 1,000 pounds. But when 45,000 pounds of German steel mashes down, crack boom, the explosion isn't as loud as you'd expect. The tank's mass absorbs and redirects most acoustic energy. What you hear is a sharp metallic crack followed immediately by concussive whump you feel in your chest cavity rather than hear with your ears. Inside the Panther, the crew is slammed sideways. The driver's vision goes white. Someone screams. The tank lurches violently right as the right side track assembly, 75 individual steel links weighing about 40 pounds each, disintegrates into shrapnel. The Panther is no longer a tank. It's a 45-ton monument to immobility, sitting at a 30-degree angle across the narrow Belgian road, completely blocking passage. And behind it, stretching back into fog for 25 kilometers, Kampfgruppe paper comes grinding to a halt. This is where the daisy chain transforms from physical weapon into psychological warfare. The roads through Ardennes aren't highways. They're medieval cart paths that got paved in the 1920s. Most are barely wide enough for 2 vehicles to pass. The terrain on either side is steep, heavily forested, and in December 1944, covered with deep snow and muddy ravines. You can't go around. You can't turn around. You can only go forward or backward. When that Panther stops, it creates a cork in a very expensive bottle. Within minutes, the column backs up, another Panther, 2 King Tigers, a Panzer IV, 5 half-tracks packed with grenadiers, 3 fuel trucks, 2 ammunition carriers, a mobile workshop, a field kitchen. All sitting bumper to bumper, engines idling, burning fuel, going nowhere. Paper, riding in his command half-track about 2 kilometers back, gets the radio message and feels his stomach drop. Panzer spare. Tank barrier. Was? How? His voice is sharp. The Pioneer Squad swept that road 15 minutes ago. It was clear. The report comes back confused, contradictory. Mine appeared on the road. The Pioneers didn't detect it. Paper's jaw clenches. Move the wreck. Get engineers forward. Clear the road. Now. But moving a disabled 45-ton tank isn't like pushing a stalled car. Germans need to bring up a recovery vehicle, an 18-ton Burge Panther specifically designed for this purpose. Except the Burge Panther is 40 vehicles back in the column, and to reach the front, it needs vehicles ahead to move aside on a road that doesn't have room to move aside. It takes 45 minutes just to get the recovery vehicle into position. While this happens, every vehicle in Kampfgruppe paper is burning fuel. The King Tigers alone, just sitting there idling to keep batteries charged and prevent engines from freezing, are consuming 60 to 80 liters per hour. Multiply that by a dozen King Tigers. Add Panthers. Add half-tracks and trucks. Germans are burning through thousands of liters of gasoline to accomplish absolutely nothing. And then, just as the recovery crew gets chains attached to the disabled Panther, it happens again. 3 kilometers ahead at another roadblock near Trois-Ponts, another American engineer named Private Douglas Harvey pulls another daisy chain. Another explosion. Another tank sitting sideways across another road. Paper receives the second report and something inside him shifts. This isn't random. This is coordinated. Americans are using some kind of tactic Germans have never encountered before. He radios Pioneer commanders, your Hope Wachsamkeit. Jeet anomaly melden, heightened vigilance. Report every anomaly. But here's the diabolic genius of the daisy chain, it can't be detected by standard mine detection equipment. The mines aren't buried, so magnetic signature is either non-existent or lost in clutter of surface debris. They're hidden in ditches, behind snowdrifts, under piles of rubble. They look like trash. Like discarded equipment. Like nothing. Until they're not nothing. German pioneers start stopping at every shadow. Every piece of rope on the roadside. Every bump in snow. They probe with bayonets. They inspect drainage ditches. They move at a crawl. Paper's 24-hour blitzkrieg schedule is disintegrating. Meanwhile, the 291st Engineer Combat Battalion is refining tactics on the fly. They discover you don't actually need real mines for every trap. Sometimes you can just drag a rope across the road, an empty rope with nothing attached, and watch Germans slam on their brakes. Sergeant Bill McKenzie ties 3 hubcaps from a destroyed truck to telephone wire and drags it out during foggy morning. A King Tiger screeches to a halt. The crew bails out. Pioneers spend 20 minutes inspecting hubcaps before declaring them safe. 20 minutes. During which time, a 70-ton tank consumed approximately 25 liters of fuel going nowhere. The Americans start calling these phantom daisy chains. They're psychological warfare disguised as engineering obstacles. And they're brutally effective because they exploit the one thing Germans cannot afford to lose: time. Every hour Paper's column sits stationary as an hour Allied reinforcements rush toward the Bulge. The 82nd Airborne is on the move. The 101st Airborne digs in at Bastogne. Patton's Third Army wheels north. But most critically, every hour of delay brings weather closer to clearing. Because Paper's entire strategy relies on fog and snow to keep Allied fighter bombers grounded. The Luftwaffe is a spent force. Germany can't contest the skies. Paper knows this. His only advantage is bad weather. As long as clouds stay thick, he's safe. But weather doesn't stay bad forever. The Germans develop paranoid procedures. Every suspicious object gets inspected. Every shadow gets probed. Progress slows to a crawl. The American engineers watch through binoculars from concealed positions and smile grimly. They're winning a war of nerves against the SS. One engineer rigs a bicycle wheel to a rope and leaves it half buried in snow beside a crossroads. A Panther column stops for 30 minutes while pioneers carefully excavate it, convinced it's connected to mines. It's just a bicycle wheel. The psychological damage compounds. German infantry become jumpy, seeing traps everywhere. Officers second-guess every decision. The arrogance that characterized the opening hours of the offensive evaporates, replaced by caution and fear. And all the while, precious fuel burns away into the December air. December 23, 1944. The temperature is still brutal, around 15 degrees Fahrenheit. But something has changed. The fog is thinning. Patches of blue are visible through overcast. At Allied airfields across France and Belgium, ground crews frantically de-ice aircraft wings. Pilots are being briefed. Bomb racks are being loaded. The forecast for December 24th shows clear skies across the Ardennes. Christmas Eve is going to be a killing day. By this point, Kempfgruppe Paper is trapped in a pocket near the village of La Glise. The daisy chains and blown bridges forced them onto secondary roads that led into a dead end. They're still dangerous, over 800 men with tanks, assault guns, and enough ammunition to level a city. But they're stationary. Fixed in place. And in modern warfare, stationary is dead. On December 24th morning, the clouds break apart. Sunlight, actual sunlight, streams through gaps, illuminating snow-covered Ardennes in brilliant white. It's the first clear day in over a week. Paper hears them before he sees them. A distant buzzing, like angry hornets, growing louder. Then the horizon fills with silhouettes. P-47 Thunderbolts. Republic Aviation's radial engine monsters, each one carrying 8.50 caliber machine guns, 10 5-inch rockets, and up to 2,500 pounds of bombs. Germans call them Jabo, Jag Bomber. Hunter killers. The Thunderbolts don't need to search for targets. Kempfgruppe Paper is sitting in the open, vehicles lined up like toys on a showroom floor. The fighter bombers peel off into attack runs, diving at 400 miles per hour, rocket rails igniting with trails of white smoke. Sergeant Heinz Siebert, commanding a King Tiger on Lobdeli's outskirts, watches the first rocket salvo streak toward his position and knows, with absolute certainty, that he's about to die. The 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets, VARs, might not penetrate King Tiger frontal armor. But they don't need to. They're not aiming for armor. They're aiming for fuel trucks. The first rocket hits an Opel Blitz 3-ton truck loaded with jerry cans of gasoline. The explosion is white-hot, a miniature sun erupting in the Belgian forest. The shockwave flips a half-track onto its side. Burning fuel splashes across snow, igniting everything it touches. A second rocket hits another fuel truck. Another fireball. Within 90 seconds, half of Kampfgruppe Paper's remaining fuel supply is burning. The thunderbolts make pass after pass. They strafe the column with .50 caliber fire, bullets the size of your thumb, traveling at 2,900 feet per second, tearing through sheet metal and engine blocks like tissue paper. They drop 500-pound bombs that crater roads and flip tanks onto their sides. Germans try to fight back. King Tigers have anti-aircraft machine guns. Grenadiers have MG-42s. But you can't shoot down an aircraft doing 400 miles per hour with iron sights. It's like trying to swat a hornet with a broom handle. By midday, the air stinks of burning rubber, diesel fuel, and high explosives. Black smoke pillars rise thousands of feet into clear December sky, visible for miles. Allied artillery spotters see the smoke and call in fire missions. American 155mm howitzers add their own rain of steel to the chaos. Paper gathers surviving officers in the cellar of a stone farmhouse outside Lobdeli's. The walls shake with each artillery impact. Dust sifts down from the ceiling. The men are exhausted, frostbitten, hollow-eyed. Fuel status? Paper's voice is flat. Keener, none. The senior logistics officer looks like he's about to vomit. The airstrikes destroyed everything. We have maybe 200 liters total. Enough to move one Panther 5 kilometers. Silence hangs heavy in the cellar. Paper's entire strategy, Germany's last desperate gamble, has been defeated by the same element that powered it, petroleum. The daisy chains slowed them down. The blown bridges forced detours. The phantom mines created paranoia that burned fuel through needless idling. And when the skies cleared, the Allies obliterated the supply chain. The most technologically advanced armored force in history has been reduced to a stranded fleet because they ran out of gas. Options? Paper asks, though he already knows the answer. Someone suggests a fighting retreat. Someone else proposes waiting for relief. But everyone in that cellar knows the truth. There is no relief coming. The entire Ardennes offensive is collapsing. Other German units are falling back. Americans are counterattacking. Kampfgruppe Paper is alone, surrounded, and out of fuel. Paper makes the hardest decision of his military career. We destroy the vehicles and walk out. Tonight. Infantry formation. The order spreads through the trapped German force like a death sentence. Tank commanders who've spent years with their crews, who've named their machines, who've survived Normandy and Market Garden and a dozen other battles, now have to kill their own tanks. It's not just abandoning equipment. It's abandoning wounded comrades who can't walk. It's admitting total defeat. Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1944. 2,100 hours. The temperature has dropped to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. The stars are visible for the first time in weeks, brilliant and cold. In Lobdeli's village, German combat engineers move from vehicle to vehicle with thermite grenades and demolition charges. They're methodically destroying the pride of the Wehrmacht. Each King Tiger receives a thermite grenade dropped down the main gun barrel to melt the breech block. Radio equipment is smashed with rifle butts. Optical rangefinders are shattered. Fuel tanks are drained and set ablaze. Some crews can't bear to watch their tanks die and turn away, staring into the forest where they'll soon be walking. The wounded are the worst part. Paper has over 300 casualties, men with shrapnel wounds, frostbite amputations, broken bones from artillery near misses. They can't walk. They can't be carried. The SS Obersturmenführer makes arrangements with a local Belgian doctor to care for them, then leaves them behind for the Americans. For these wounded men, the war is over. For the rest, it's about to get infinitely worse. At 0100 hours on December 25th, Christmas morning, approximately 800 German soldiers form up in single file and slip into the forest south of La Galice. They move in absolute silence. Boots are wrapped in torn cloth and rags to muffle footsteps on frozen snow. No talking. No smoking. No lights. Equipment that might clink or rattle is left behind. They are 15 kilometers behind American lines, and they need to walk 30 kilometers through enemy-controlled territory to reach German positions. The column moves like ghosts through the winter forest. They follow stream beds and tree lines, avoiding roads and open ground. Every distant sound, a truck engine, voices, the clank of equipment, sends them diving into snowdrifts, holding their breath while American patrols pass within meters. Feldwebel Otto Dentz, a tank commander who 48 hours ago was riding in a 70-ton King Tiger, is now crawling through a frozen creek bed with ice water soaking through his uniform. The water is so cold it feels like knives stabbing into his legs. But if he stands up, if he makes noise, he dies. They walk for 3 nights. During the day, they hide in barns, abandoned houses, forest thickets. They have no food. They melt snow for water. Men with frostbite watch their fingers turn black. Some lose consciousness and are left behind because the group can't carry them without compromising everyone's survival. The march becomes a test of pure endurance. Men who days ago commanded millions of Reichsmarks worth of military hardware are now reduced to animals, focused only on the next step, the next breath, the next hour of survival. On December 28th, the survivors, now numbering around 770, crossed back into German lines near the village of Wewak. They are walking skeletons. Frostbitten. Starving. Shell-shocked. Many will require hospitalization. Some will never fully recover from the trauma. Behind them in Belgium, they've left 135 armored vehicles. King Tigers that cost 300,000 Reichsmarks each, equivalent to millions in today's currency. Panthers worth 117,000 Reichsmarks. Half-tracks, trucks, artillery pieces. Enough equipment to outfit 2 full armored divisions. All of it sitting abandoned in the snow because they ran out of fuel. And the fuel shortage was caused by delays. And the delays were caused by blown bridges and roadblocks. And the roadblocks were defended by American engineers using improvised anti-tank weapons made from 50 cents worth of rope. After the battle, American intelligence officers swarmed over the abandoned equipment near La Galice and Stavelot. They documented everything. Serial numbers. Fuel levels. Ammunition counts. Condition of track assemblies. They interviewed captured German soldiers, trying to understand what happened. One recurring theme emerged from interrogations: the Germans were terrified of the mine traps that appeared from nowhere. They described mines that moved onto roads. Traps that their detectors couldn't find. Weapons that seemed to defy physics. The Americans realized the daisy chain had achieved something remarkable. It wasn't just a physical weapon, it was a psychological operation that exploited German expectations and doctrine. Germans expected buried mines, so their detectors looked for buried signatures. When mines came from the sides, from positions that should have been cleared, it created cognitive dissonance. It made every empty road look dangerous. It made every piece of debris look like a threat. Modern military analysts would call this asymmetric warfare, using unconventional tactics to neutralize a technologically superior opponent. The daisy chain was the World War II equivalent of the improvised explosive devices that later challenged modern armies in Iraq and Afghanistan. But here's the fascinating part: the daisy chain was never officially adopted into U.S. Army doctrine. It was too dangerous. Too improvised. It required individual soldiers to make split-second decisions while a tank drove at their face. The casualty rate among daisy chain operators was significant. Several engineers were killed by premature detonations, blast overpressure, or German infantry who spotted them before they could pull the trigger. The military wanted weapons that were safe, predictable, and could be used by any soldier with minimal training. The daisy chain was none of those things. It was an act of desperate ingenuity that worked because the men of the 291st Engineer Combat Battalion were willing to do something insane. Lieutenant Colonel David Pergrin, the 27-year-old civil engineer who commanded the 291st, was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for his actions during the Battle of the Bulge. His battalion received a Presidential Unit Citation, one of the highest honors the U.S. Army can bestow on a unit. The citation read, in part, though greatly outnumbered and constantly subjected to heavy enemy artillery, mortar, and small arms fire, the officers and men of the 291st Engineer Combat Battalion stubbornly resisted all enemy attempts to drive through their positions. From an initial force of 600 men, the battalion suffered 93 wounded and 8 killed by war's end. But their contribution to stopping the German offensive was incalculable. After the war, Pergrin went back to being a civil engineer. He returned to Penn State, worked in construction, and lived a quiet life in Pennsylvania until his death in 2012 at age 94. He rarely spoke about the war. When he did, he always emphasized the same thing: it wasn't his brilliance that stopped paper. It was the courage of young men willing to hold a rope while death drove toward them. The daisy chain became a case study in military innovation schools. Not because it was technologically sophisticated, it wasn't. But because it demonstrated what happens when you combine desperation, creativity, and courage. The Germans had better tanks, better optics, better metallurgy, more combat experience. On paper, Kampfgruppe paper should have crushed any opposition. But they lost because they were rigid. They followed doctrine. When they encountered something their doctrine didn't account for, mines that appeared from nowhere, they froze. The Americans, on the other hand, were flexible. When the ground was too hard to bury mines, they didn't give up. They asked, "What else can we do?" That question, "What else can we do?" is the question that wins wars. The Battle of the Bulge ended in January 1945 with complete Allied victory. Germany's last offensive had failed. The Wehrmacht burned through irreplaceable reserves of men, fuel, and armor, and achieved nothing strategic. Within 4 months, the war in Europe was over. But the daisy chain's legacy extends far beyond December 1944. It demonstrated a fundamental truth about warfare that remains relevant today: technology doesn't guarantee victory. Adaptation does. Innovation does. The willingness to improvise when doctrine fails. Modern militaries study the Battle of the Bulge extensively, and the daisy chain shows up in doctrinal manuals as an example of battlefield innovation. It's taught at West Point. It's analyzed at the Army War College. Not because it was a brilliant technological breakthrough, it wasn't. But because it was a triumph of human ingenuity over material disadvantage. In an era where militaries spend billions on advanced weapons systems, there's something deeply instructive about a weapon made from $10 worth of rope and existing mines that defeated a $500 million armored division. The daisy chain worked because it exploited psychology as much as physics. It made Germans afraid of empty roads. It turned their own caution against them. It transformed time, an invisible, intangible asset, into a weapon. The men of the 291st Engineer Combat Battalion proved that David can still beat Goliath. Not with advanced technology. Not with overwhelming force. But with courage, creativity, and willingness to try something everyone else said was crazy. If you stand today at the crossroads near Stavelot where Private Vincent Consiglio pulled that first daisy chain, you'll see a quiet Belgian village. There's a small memorial plaque. Some flowers. The road has been repaved a dozen times since 1944. But if you close your eyes, you can still hear it. The whine of Maybach engines. The clank of steel tracks. The sharp crack of an anti-tank mine detonating under 45 tons of German steel. You can imagine a 23-year-old kid from Newark, freezing in a foxhole, gripping a piece of hemp rope with white-knuckled hands, waiting for a tank to drive close enough to kill him before he pulls the trigger. And you understand that the history of warfare isn't just written by generals and politicians. It's written by young men and women who, when faced with impossible situations, find a way. They took a 50-cent piece of rope and changed the course of World War II. Would you have the nerve? Sitting in that foxhole, frost creeping through your uniform, fingers numb on the rope, watching 45 tons of German steel thunder toward you, would you wait for the perfect moment? If this story gave you chills, smash that like button. These forgotten World War II stories deserve to be remembered. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you never miss another deep dive into the improvised weapons and battlefield innovations that changed history. Drop a comment below. Tell me, what other untold World War II engineering tactics do you want us to cover next? The Hobart's funnies? The floating tanks of D-Day? The bridge at Remagen? Because these men weren't superheroes. They were construction workers, telephone line installers, and bridge builders who became warriors when the moment demanded it. And their story will never be forgotten.